right screen to share, hopefully. Okay, show all windows. You never know what, okay, maybe here. Okay, let's see. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. So let me go to maybe slide mode. Is it in a slide mode right now?
You need to click present. It's at the top next to the save. It looks like a little arrow in a chart at the top left.
I basically,
Let me show you.
yeah.
Right there.
So where is it? Oh, okay, this one. Let's
Mhm.
see. Slideshow, resume. Yeah, so maybe because the screen is moved here, that's the reason. So still it's not in the slide mode, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, maybe. Well, you can see.
What
Yeah.
office are you in? What office are you in?
My own office.
What number? Yeah, what number?
It's that's a good question. 610.
Okay, I'm coming to you.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, because today I changed my setting in order to be able to have a better camera, but I am going to see, okay, if IT can come here, but I am going to get started anyway.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, can you guys see anything right now?
Yes, ma'am. We're following.
Okay, so is it the first slide or the second slide you are seeing?
Your introduction, ma'am.
Okay, that's great. That is great. So I am just going to say escape. Okay, so that both of us are sharing the same screen here. So basically, I just wanted to share this logo with you first, which is we are now used to it. It's very well done. It's paths to publication. And I'd like to thank the Center for Research and Development in Dual Language and Literacy Acquisition and the Graduate Student Advisory Council and all the rest of you who have been involved and sponsored these different presentations for our college or for other colleagues in other universities. So as far as introduction is concerned, I am going to give you a very short autobiography, noting my role over the years as a member of a number of journal editorial boards and as a reviewer for so many different journals. And then I will identify some of the strategies that I myself have used or learned from other seasoned scholars in the field to be used in order to publish. Oh, you're here, my dear. Okay, see, I want to make it into, oh, Dr. Echel, he is a miracle. Okay. See, this is, yeah.
This one.
I think, let's see what happens.
Yeah, you share. You see that, Jordan?
Yes, sir. But it's still not in
it's not
presentation mode.
Presentation mode. Because when we do presentation, it went there.
Yeah, there's usually an easier button for that.
It's here, but not there. Oh, that's the one. Yeah. I think that's.
We good?
No, it's same mode.
I think you can click Alt and F5 to thresholds.
Alt and F5, should I? I will let you handle that.
How's that, Jordan?
Nope. Are there two versions of the PowerPoint pulled up and the wrong one's being shared?
It could. No, I don't think so. Let's just close if it's, you can see it here. Oh, right now there are several.
There it is. Perfect.
So if I, thank you. So if I do this, then it will be shared, right?
Yes, you're all good. You can just go ahead and click next back to the slide you were sharing.
Okay, that's good. So then that means I have to look this way. Can they have this one here? I think or no. So because I don't want to, the camera is there, but the screen is here. That's the problem I had. So that's the reason I changed it back to. Yeah, maybe this one. Yes, I think that's better. Maybe. Mhm.
How's that, Jordan?
It's great. Now just click next to add the text. I think the text has animation, so we only see the title.
Exactly. Okay.
Perfect. There we go.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I
Very good.
appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, so, and then I will talk about the strategies and that I have used or I have learned from other colleagues that I am using. And of course, then I will talk about some other strategies that I believe you can use or you can benefit from in order to get published internationally. And why did I put internationally? Because I was thinking, well, a lot of these things can be done for journals nationally and internationally. So it doesn't have to be necessarily from an international perspective. But most of, as you can see, a lot of journal publishers are not in the United States. Editorial boards come from international arena, and then connecting with international scholars in your field definitely can enhance the possibility of your research getting published. So I think okay, so let me see. I don't know why this is not. Can you see it right now or no?
Yes.
Okay,
You should
so
just be able to click the next arrow on your keyboard or click your screen. There you go. Yeah, it's working.
that's good. Okay, so I have mentioned that. Okay, so first I should let you know, and I am sorry if this is not working the way I want it to work, but let's see. Okay, so I am the co-editor and managing editor for the Journal of Applied Pragmatics with John Benjamin's right now. And we started this journal about 6 years ago. And one of the reasons I did not accept to be the editor was that I wanted to serve as co-editor and have my other colleagues like Professor Taguchi, who is a well-known scholar in applied linguistics, and her field is intercultural communication, multilingualism, English as lingua franca. To serve as editor, it took a lot of pulling of arms to actually convince her that we will do the job and we like her to be the editor because of her stature in the, I would say, in the field of applied linguistics. And also Dr. Ziad Tajuddin. So I'm sharing this in order to show some of the challenges we might have when we want to actually work with international collaborators. So Dr. Ziad Tajuddin, who is a scholar from Iran, and you can later look at the journal, look at the editors and co-editors, he wanted to be the editor, but unfortunately, a lot of publishers, due to political situation, don't want to have any involvement with Iranian scholars who are residing in Iran. And so the answer was immediately no, but by John Benjamin's, but then you have to sometimes persist. So I went to the Conference of Applied Linguistics and I met the publisher representative in the conference and I talked with him and I told him who I am and where I work. And then he said, we don't want to have any connections with Iran because it's going to cause problems for us. But if you accept to be the manager editor also, then you will go ahead and get it started. So Dr. Ziad Tajuddin and Dr. Naoko Taguchi, I think Naoko is at Arizona State University right now. She used to be at Carnegie Mellon University, and she's, if you search her name, you would see how much or how many publications and how active she is. She's originally from Japan, and she does a lot of research on English and Japanese and Asian languages and bilingualism, multilingualism. And Dr. Tajuddin, of course, is from Iran. And we have other co-editors from Europe, from Iran. And so it's definitely truly an international editorial board that we have. I have also served as a editorial board member, and I'm still serving in a number of TESOL, AJ, bilingual.
Oh, I think we might have lost
in
connection.
the Middle East, are basically involved. So I do serve as an editorial board member, and I will tell you why this is important, not to be only as a reviewer, but the next step would be to move up. If you have done a lot of review and have done it successfully, and if you have published successfully, then you can actually go to some of these editors and ask to be included in the journal editorial board or in the panel of reviewers or something. And they are more than willing to see your credential and add you. So do not always, especially as international, sometimes colored female scholars, which we may get marginalized and not be solicited by other editors, by other, I would say, guest editors for a special issue of journals or for conferences. You need to have agency. Okay, I don't have my video on, so I will see what is wrong with that in a moment. But you need, to have,
I think your video is lagging, Dr. Eslami. So you can continue with your video off. It was showing some interference, but we can hear you clearly and we can see your presentation.
Okay, that's good. So let's see what happens. Okay, but if it got to stop, then it's not my problem, it's the technology.
Correct.
So it's very important to be proactive, to be agentive, and contact, of course, humbly, politely, diplomatically, some of the editorial boards, conference organizers, panel organizers, and show your willingness and your expertise that you can make a contribution, and do not always wait for them to contact you. And I think this has been helpful for me. I can move this. Oh my gosh, this is not working as I wanted it to work. So let me, So then I am going to talk about the strategies for getting published based on my experience after what I shared with you about my own kind of being proactive, especially with international editorial boards, with international scholars in my field. I think it's very important to make that connection between yourself and the members of your research community. And in order to familiarize you with some of the strategies that I myself have used, I will talk about the strategies now. Can you see? Okay, so just show me a thumbs up. Okay, so one of the strategies, of course, is to find topics that are, I would say, interesting to you, motivate you, you have a passion for it, and you can feel yourself being in that research area for a long time in your career and journey. And when I did my PhD, and that shows how old I am, in 1992 at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, I knew from the beginning that I'm more interested in social and cultural aspects of language acquisition. And so I started taking sociolinguistic classes, or if I could, of course, you had to take psycholinguistics, you had to take phonology and syntax, and all of those were required. But where I had a choice, I would take sociolinguistics or cross-cultural communication. At that time was being taught by Barton, or the role of English in international context by Dr. Braj Kachru. So World Englishes actually was the title of the course. So these were the areas that I kind of was interested, and I took advantage by taking elective courses in those areas. And then I kind of realized, yes, cultural and sociocultural aspects of language use are very much interesting and they do motivate me. So I started my PhD in comparing pragmatic and politeness strategies used in Persian language by English learners from Iranian background and American students. So that was the beginning of my research in cross-cultural communication, cross-cultural pragmatics. Right now we call it intercultural communication, intercultural pragmatics for different reasons. And then, of course, I remember even when I was a PhD student, I turned to my peers, to colleagues for support. Kenneth Rose, a very well-known scholar, he has published with Casper and other known scholars. We were classmates, and he was very strong in this area. So, and of course, he was married to an Iranian girl, so I took advantage of that and got closer, and we worked together. And so he mentored me, and maybe I contributed some also. But I was thinking about finding colleagues. Even as a PhD student, you don't have to always look at faculty members. You can find colleagues amongst your own peers. And then when feasible, collaborate with them. Now, sometimes as novice researchers, as PhD students, it's not easy to collaborate with each other only and to make something into a publishable product, but maybe you can talk to one of the faculty members you deem appropriate for your research, especially your chair, co-chair, committee members, but then it doesn't have to be limited to those faculty members. You can collaborate with other faculty members, but be diplomatic, consult with your chair.
Okay, you froze, Dr. Eslami. Give me just a moment. We lost your volume. It doesn't show that you're muted, so all your settings should be correct. Just for some reason, I can't hear you. Yeah, I can't hear you. Technology's been an issue today. There we go. I can hear you.
Okay, so let me just, don't worry about the video, and right now just use the audio.
Sounds great. Yeah, sounds great.
Yes. So basically, you can work with each other as PhD students, graduate students, not necessarily PhD, even master students can work together with PhD, with other graduate students, maybe find a faculty mentor to look at your, I would say, drafts and give you some comments. It doesn't take that much time because they are seasoned scholars and can give you comments that would be very instrumental. And then you may want, depending on the contribution, to definitely add that faculty member's name to the publication because time and expertise is important. And have authorship with others reflect merit rather than seniority. I think that's important. So just because somebody is a senior member doesn't have to be the first author. And usually faculty members who have published enough and have gone through the ranks, they don't mind being even the last author because their name is already established and they want to help you to make yourself known in the field. It's great to have their name. I always tell my students, it's great to have a faculty member or a researcher who is well known in the field added as one of the authors. And of course, after you seek his or her mentorship, but since people know that a scholar, they are going to seek out his or her publications. And even though that person maybe is the last author or the second or third, but for people to see that name, it adds to your citations because they want to cite that well-known scholar. So it's strategically also beneficial to add scholars that are have high citations because those are the scholars that are visible right now. And then use that as a bridge to build your own portfolio and profile for being a known scholar in the field. And publish widely. So you don't want to always target one journal or two journals. And sometimes we see, a group of scholars that have 5 publications, maybe or 10 publications in 2 or 3 journals. That may not be the best strategy. You want to seek out different journals, different collaborators, because that would add to your visibility and to your connections. And make sure to make each one of your publications in some way unique, and it's possible. What is the contribution of this paper that you are publishing compared to all the prior research that is being done in this area? Are you adding another, let's say, group or unique group of students? Are you adding the gender variable to this study? Are you adding a nationality or a language that is not well studied? Or are you addressing an issue which has been shown to have different findings, debatable by different scholars? So find that uniqueness in your paper, in your publication, and be able to talk about it. And what is important, and some of us are shy or humble or busy, is that when you have a draft, or even when you publish it, circulate it first if it's not published about this among the scholars you trust and can give you some feedback. But more important is that when your paper is published or it's almost being accepted for publication, or it's in the early stages of publication, publicize it, send it to all your connections or contacts as an email attachment. And that's okay by the publisher if it's done through you. So you're not violating the copyright. And maybe mention the title and the journal on Facebook and other social networking, I would say, systems that you're a part of, a member of. That definitely would open the possibility of more citations of your work, because then people know you have published it. They may add it to the references they have about a topic, maybe they are researching similar topic. So these are strategies that may seem very down to earth, but not all of us are necessarily cognizant, and I would say involved in doing it. I myself being one of them, sometimes for the sake of time, and sometimes I think it's bragging and modesty, some cultural issues. I tend not to put it on Facebook. And I say, okay, so I published a paper in, let's say, second language acquisition, studies in second language acquisition, which is a very good journal or system in my field, of course, or computer assisted language learning. So this is a good accomplishment because it's in a very high impact journal. But then I say, no, at this time in my career, it's not good to share it on Facebook. And that's modesty. But I have seen other scholars, seasoned and experienced, they do that not only for themselves, but to help others know that this new publication by this group of researchers just came out. So you're informing your community of researchers, colleagues, about the work that has just been published. And make it accessible to others. A lot of times we think if we share a conference presentation, or if we share a paper, then people are going to, I don't know, copy from it. I would say even if they do, they should be able to discuss it and just encourage them to cite you if they take anything. I appreciate if you cite any parts that you take from this paper or from this PowerPoint, but I think being generous and making your presentations and your publications accessible to others is going to have positive outcome. I do remember, and a lot of these ideas I got from Professor Andrew Cohen. He almost always shares all his presentations and publications with us. And he was very generous about it. And I think that's maybe one of the positive points people will remember from him. And what if somebody says the same thing? As long as maybe they acknowledge him, that's, I think, more than enough that he would expect. Okay. It's very important to have a niche for yourself. And I kind of was debating, should you have this or should you not? I remember because of the nature of PhD students and their interest that I have had during the last 20 years or so at Texas A&M, I did not necessarily stick to my own research area and expanded my research to other areas. And then when it was time for my review and promotion, I thought, my goodness, how do I say, why have I published here and here and here and here on this topic and on this topic and on this topic, and how would I bring them under kind of an umbrella? But there is a way to do that. And if you follow your publications even later, then you realize, oh, there is a niche there. And again, that's for me, that has been the social cultural aspects of bilingualism, multilingualism. And then I have connected it to English medium instruction and pragmatics, translanguaging as one of the social cultural issues. So there is a way to bring it under one umbrella, but be careful to not be everywhere and nowhere. It's okay to be in different places with expertise, but without expertise and not being able to say exactly where you belong, that can be problematic also.
Dr. Eslami,
Yes.
I think you should move your PowerPoint forward. We're still on your strategies, and I feel like you might be on a new slide now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you should be on finding your niche or something very similar.
Yeah. Yes. Is that right?
Yeah. Keep going. Yeah, you're about there. Mhm.
Okay, so, and thank you, just let me know, because where I look, it's moving, but maybe I should look down here. And also, yeah, have you established, and I am looking, unique, circulate, I think I have to go forward, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, there you go. That's where you are.
Exactly. So, do you have a collegial relationship with a journal editor? I would say if it's not editor, the editorial board members. That's very important. These kinds of connections, it's not to take advantage negatively, but it's to broaden your connectivity and your network with other scholars in the field. Let's say when I was just hired by Texas A&M University in 2002, I did, I think, an excellent review for Journal of Intercultural Pragmatics. And I think when the editor read my review, then he realized, it seems like I'm not a bad scholar. And then he contacted me and said, do you like to make a submission, a contribution to the journal on this topic? And then I said, yeah, and I made a contribution. So basically, because of the quality of the review, I got to know the journal editor. I participated in a special issue of that journal, and I have been in touch with Professor Kechkech since then. And he's originally from Russia, but he works in New York, and he is, again, another very well-known scholar. So another issue that you have to consider, especially, and it doesn't matter if you're a native speaker of English or non-native speaker, is the grammar in the paper acceptable? Yes, we have English as international language, English as lingua franca, world Englishes, but when it comes to reality, reviewers are looking for a paper that reads well, and a lot of times the dominant genre in academic writing in your field is considered, which is basically, fortunately or unfortunately, based on native speaker criteria. And for that, maybe even if your co-author is a native speaker, it's not a bad idea to have a native speaking editor, pay a little bit of money, that's okay. But then if you can afford, but then that editor would make it much easier for you to publish your paper, even if you are a native speaker. I have had a lot of native speaking colleagues, English native speakers, that have an editor, and they would send their papers before they send it for publication. So the editor can see things that maybe you or your co-editor did not see, and that's very important. Make sure, last evening we had a class presentation and the research questions were so convoluted and even grammatically maybe not correct based on the, I would say, standard English standards, and long research questions. Well, that is not a good style, especially for your research questions. It's very important to spend a good amount of time looking at your research questions, make sure they are clear, concise, brief, and worth asking. And they kind of show and operationalize in some way the variables that you are using in your research. So make sure if your paper is written well, is a good research paper, if suddenly there is no, I would say a few non-correspondence between the citations and references, that can backfire badly. Because then the reviewers think if you haven't been careful about some technicality issues as such, then maybe you haven't been careful with other aspects of the paper. And it's not rigorous enough how you found your participants and how you have reflected your research procedure. So also consider your research methods that show the most updated research methodology that is used. And if you're not willing to use the most updated research methodology used by recent scholars in the field, at least be able to justify why you are using another methodology. These are very important. And research instruments are another aspect to be considered. Are they appropriate for what you are trying to measure? Are they aligned with your research questions? And have you actually piloted the instruments to make sure they are reliable and valid? And make sure that you know the difference between reliability and validity of the instrument. These are some of the things that even reviewers who do not have time to go through every single detail in your paper would kind of quickly review and make comments. Is there something innovative in your research design? If it is, and hopefully there is something you can find, make sure to mention it. Is your report of your findings, do you stay on task, speaking to each research question in an order that you presented them? So that organization to move from research question 1, this present the finding, results, findings, discussion, and follow that logical order and make sure you have addressed all the nuances related to that research question in a logical and I would say organized fashion. What is important, a lot of us kind of go overboard and get tangled in a lot of this valuable information that we have gathered and we like to share with our readers. And then you start getting into having too much information and getting off task even. You may share things that are not directly related, and that can confuse the reader. So don't pad the paper and just write the right amount. And don't get off task because it's so interesting and you're so passionate about this idea. And that's the reason it's so hard for us to even shorten our papers, because you want to remove some part and say, oh no, this is important, no, this is important. But if you give it to somebody else, that person may not have that much attachment to those ideas that you have shared and get rid of some of them because they are not needed. Did you organize the paper in a manner consistent with the journal to which you are submitting your paper to? So if the journal uses APA style or has its own style, make sure these are some technical issues that can actually threaten the whole substance you have in your research and your draft and your paper. So technical issues are not difficult to take care of. at least maybe hire a graduate student or undergraduate student, show them how to do it, and pay them some money if you don't want to spend time on these technicalities. But it's very important to make sure your references and your citations align, you are following the format that the journal is asking for, and most important is not necessarily only the rigor of your research methodology, of your research question, the unique contributions you can make, but it's how you present it in writing. I cannot emphasize this as much as it should be, but the way you convey your message in writing, and not all of us are the best writers, is highly important. And that's the reason maybe you need to seek help from others, and it's okay to do that. So make sure you are using the jargon of the field. And if you are submitting your paper to a European journal who does not believe in the terminology of translanguaging, and they believe code switching and code mixing is the one you should be using, then maybe consider the culture and the jargon of that research community. That has happened to me. I talked about translanguaging and they say this is North America kind of jargon that they have created for no good reason. And one of the reviewers was so negative about the use of the term of translanguaging, and why are we coining another term when we have code mixing and all that. So if acronyms are used, make sure to define them clearly. And if they are used so much that they put unnecessary burden on the reader's memory, I have seen that in presentations, PowerPoint presentations, or in papers, you don't want to bombard your readers with these acronyms. So make sure to clearly define them, but avoid using them so many times in one paragraph or one sentence. Now, organization of the paper is highly important. Also, clear, meaningful subheadings, and the coherence, connection, logical connection of one heading to different subheadings. And what I do, the strategy I have shared with my students, I put the table of content of several papers that are similar to my papers in front of me. And I look at them. And then I say, okay, I'm going to do this myself. And it's like, I have looked at these 3 different models, and then I come up with my own model for the organization of the paper. So what I'm going to say first, what I'm going to say next, and that outline is going to definitely help you for headings and subheadings. And it's very important to use the heading and subheadings that is typically used in the field that you're addressing. So if it's participants, instruments, if I am going to search your paper that I'm going to review, I immediately say procedure, data collection, and do a search, reliability, validity, and see where you have talked about all of this. Because sometimes readers forget where you discussed it. And it's very important to follow the discourse style of the discourse community you are making your contribution to. For a research paper, after the abstract, an abstract is highly important. I will discuss it further. Usually the following sections are typical, of course, and students who take these research classes or even our graduate classes, I remember Andrea McMurray, who was taking, I think, one of her first courses with me. She's an excellent educator and researcher, but she was just not familiar with the how to do research based on the research community standards. And she said, Dr. Eslami, all of this is new to me, even though I know she could learn it very easily because she was so experienced and she had a lot to offer to the class. But there were some areas that I could see she has been a practitioner or vice versa. You have been mostly a researcher and so divorced from the realities of the classrooms as you write your papers. So it's very important to have introduction, review of literature, and how you organize your review of literature. You have to be mindful about that. The organization of, is it chronological? Is it thematic? So you have to decide how you want to organize your literature review, which topics you are going to discuss first, what is going to be your key areas and key ideas, and then supporting ideas. Then you come to your research question that should evolve from that literature review. This is very important. I see a lot of papers, they have literature review, and then suddenly you get to a research question with no connection there. And so it's important at the end of the literature review, maybe show the gaps in the literature, maybe show that this is an area which has been investigated and examined, but this specific area still needs more research, and therefore we are raising these research questions, and then write your research questions. Methods, describe your sample, your instrumentation, what instruments you have used for, if it's intervention, if it's data collection, all of these, and the procedure. If you did interview, how did you do it? How long did it take? Where did you do it? Did you do it in the first language? Did you do it in the second language? Did you ask participants to choose the language of that they want to use for the interview? How did you record it? How did you transcribe it? How did you make sure you're transcribing it with fidelity based on what the participants said? So this detailed information for your data collection and analysis is very important. Findings, you have to be extra clear with what you have found. Don't be over ambitious or so humble with your finding. You don't have to emphasize that there was no significant difference. There was no significant difference. Maybe if other researchers have found significant differences, and you think it's very important, yours is not significant, then maybe emphasize it. But if it's not something you would expect, then maybe show that there is tendency, even though the differences were not significant, but there is a tendency, there is a trend for all these, I would say, statistical results. We are getting to significant difference, but it's not quite significant, and explain maybe the number of participants were not high enough. Maybe the number of questions were not sufficient enough. So you have to be strategic and competent how to relate your findings to the readers, and based on the previous literature, your discussion can be a summary of findings, and then it's important and crucial to talk about the limitations. Don't shy away and let the reviewers point it out for you. So if you actually mention your own limitations in your research, then it seems like you have stolen the thunder that can come from your reviewers. So you have already addressed them, so reviewers cannot immediately find it and say, why this and why that, and you should have mentioned it. And be sure to take the time to interpret your findings. And readers want to know how competent, and reviewers, you are to interpret the findings you have found in relation to the research that you have shared in your literature review. Make sure you use your limitation and make suggestions for further research. If it's especially pedagogy is an important part of your publication, make sure to clearly talk about pedagogical implications, and then conclusion. Write some good conclusions. And of course, references. Always people say, should we use old references, new references? I would say references, if something is classical, that is cited a lot, even if it's from 1950, you should mention that. But you want to stay up to date with your references. You want to show your readership, your reviewers, that you know what is being done in your area. And citing other people who have done similar research is not a drawback. Do not hide it. Mention it. Let them know that you know about their research, and say how yours might be different and what your contribution is based on what they have done. So it's very important to acknowledge researchers in the field and make sure that you acknowledge the important and sometimes the marginalized ones. I always tell my colleagues, send me your publications. We need to help each other, to cite each other's papers. Others do it. Believe it or not, there is, I would say, kind of empires, if you may call it, this kind of semi-empires of colleagues who cite each other, and they become the big figures in the field, and they only cite each other. They do not cite me and you and novice scholars. So it's very important to find your own network and help each other with citations to make, and of course, I'm talking when we are sure about the quality, but it's important to help and create this community of scholars, share your contributions with others, and encourage them to cite you, and make sure to cite them as well. So references are important, and I cannot emphasize that when you see somebody has cited you, you get a tendency to read their papers and seek out their other publications. So it helps them also. So appendices, of course, helps for other people to see your survey questions, your interview questions, so they don't have to send you an email and ask for it. So abstract is something that we usually wait until the end, but I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to spend a good amount of time on your abstract. This is the first thing the reviewers will see. This is the first thing the journal editor will check. And this is the first thing other scholars who are doing systematic literature reviews or meta-analysis would see. And sometimes I may not have time as a seasoned scholar maybe to read throughout the whole paper, but I like to know what this paper is all about just by reading the abstract. So abstracts, of course, could be done hastily. That definitely is going to harm you. The truth is that a good abstract can be an important window into your study. Reviewers rely heavily on the abstract. Busy readers may just depend on the abstract to learn what information your study has addressed, and the topic should be clearly stated. Make sure that, especially with the title of your paper, you play with it, you check it with other people. The aim of your study should be articulated and stated very clearly. Sample size should be in your abstract, and the procedure you have used for your data collection, number of participants that you have used for your data analysis, how they were performed, all of these should be in that 300 or word of abstract that you have and you develop for your study. And also at the end of your abstract, you may want to add 1 or 2 sentences about your findings and the importance of your finding, the conclusion. And so if the journal, these are the final thoughts, I know we are running out of time, so I'm going to hurry here. Do not get discouraged if you are rejected. This is so typical to get rejected. And do not read or check the decision of for your paper when you are tired or when you want to go to bed, because that can be so discouraging and kind of occupy your mind during the night. Oh my goodness, I got rejected. So especially the reviewer's comment, read it when you are ready to read it. And to not just say, the hell with this comment, they didn't even read my paper. They don't know what I'm talking about, and start criticizing the reviewers. The reviewers spend a good amount of time, most of them. They are not biased. Most of them, they don't know you. And if you are lucky, you have got a reviewer who likes your topic and is more positive. If you are not lucky, maybe a very, I would say, critical reviewer who doesn't even like your topic. But even with those critical reviewers, you can find things that are valuable and you can use to the extent possible. Sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes they're questioning the whole essence of your research. Well, that is something that I cannot do anything about. But there are things that you can use in order to improve the paper and submit it to another journal. And again, the choice of journal is very important. Make sure to talk to your mentor, to your colleagues. You don't want to go to very high impact journal or very low impact journal based on the quality of your paper. You have to use the impact that is aligned with your journal. And of course, the editorial board and other things should be considered. Be humble. It benefits you. Do not start cursing those reviewers. And be honest. It resonates. So you should honestly evaluate the paper and say, is this reviewer really saying something that I honestly think I should have done a better job of? And circulate the draft of papers. I already have mentioned that. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eslami. I loved your concluding remarks about not reading it before you go to bed. I have a habit of the minute a grade is posted, I'm like, oh, let me see what they said. And it's usually not a good time to check it.
I know it can be very discouraging. So I'm open to your suggestions and comments and contributions and questions also.
All right, does anyone have any questions? You can either type them in the chat or you can like raise your little hand on Zoom and we can discuss them.
It's great to see a lot of familiar faces.
Oh, Dr.
Okay.
Afarji has a question.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So thank you so much, Dr. Eslami, for this wonderful, informative, detailed presentation.
Thank you.
So back to the idea when we get as a graduate students or early graduate feedback from reviewers, that you feel at some point that it's kind of like conflicting or not aligned. Sometimes, you know, you see that the two reviewers or the three reviewers are directing their, you know, feedback into a side that you feel, oh yes, this area I needed to work on, or I didn't, you know, clarify here enough. But sometimes you feel it's kind of like contradictory and you need to respond to both different things. How do you react to that? Thank you.
That's an excellent question. And we do find that, don't we, that somebody says this is excellent and somebody says this is awful, or somebody says this should be changed this way and somebody says, I would say, first of all, be diplomatic. You know, diplomacy in your writing is very important. And that's the reason when I had a graduate student years ago, and she would write responses back to reviewers, and she would say, I do not agree with you. My advisor was the best known person in the field, and that's what she said. And I said, Kim, this is pseudonym, you wouldn't know who I'm talking about. You don't write this to the reviewers like this. So be diplomatic about it. And I would say, if it's contradictory, you can say respectfully, the second reviewer said this, but this reviewer, so my response to this reviewer is this, and to the other reviewer, and then make an informed choice based on the literature and your own justification. So have that agency. Sometimes we don't have enough confidence in ourselves, and we think what we should do is what they want us, and then you are torn apart between these two reviewers. And so I would say, even though you answer them politely and diplomatically, answer to them, but at the same time, make an informed choice. Look at the literature and justify the decision you have made for modification with the support of the literature and known scholars in the field. And it's very important to use these reviews, if you know them, their own citations maybe. And something I forgot to say, I think I grew up in Middle East, so diplomacy is very important to us culturally. If I always say, if you're submitting to, let's say, foreign language annals, look at the editorial board, look at the reviewers, board of reviewers, and make sure that if these people have published something in your field related to the paper, make sure you cite them.
That's a great answer.
Thank you so much. I didn't think about that. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I look, and I have told my PhD students, go through this person's publications quickly. And those people who make the decisions, and make sure that you cite the research if it's somewhat or somehow relevant to your research.
Okay, that's awesome. I have two
Thank you.
questions in the chat and we don't have a lot of time left. So let's have brief answers. The first one is how do we address the challenge of perception by some reviewers who sometimes look at the authors and reject the paper, although the paper is of good quality? I've had cases where you submit a paper and the paper gets rejected, but the moment an authors from some universities is included, the paper is accepted. It sounds like it may not be a double-blind review, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, sometimes even if it's not a blind review, you can guess who might the authors be. And then it's not only the name of the reviewers. The minute you see something is done in Qatar or something is done in the Middle East, people look at that research not as necessarily as positive as they look at something from North America or inner circle English speaking countries. And even conferences, I have seen when there is an Arab speaking name or Persian or Muslim speaking name, and they see that as a presenter, that room may not be filled up with the audience, enough number of people who want to attend. So these, I would say, stereotypes, discrimination, biases are always there. And it's not easy to get rid of it. Deep down in my heart, I may have some of these biases. I may not acknowledge them. It's not easy to change. So I would say, first of all, make sure, especially if you come from a marginalized background, that your name, you submit to a journal, that your name is not going to be revealed. And second, if you have a well-known scholar by your name as a co-author, and that's the reason I said make sure to use faculty members who are well published in your field. And I'm sorry to say, but these connections play an important, the quality is #1 criteria, but it's not just the quality. We have seen some papers that really are not that well written or well designed, but they get published in very good journals. And some papers that are very well written and designed, they don't get published and they have to go to tier 2 or tier 3 journals. It's not always because of the quality and rigor of the paper and the design and methodology and all that. It's because of who wrote it and then how it was written. The minute they see a non-native English speaking kind of discourse style, they are going to look at it negatively. That should not be the case. The ideal, what is ideal, unfortunately, is not what is real. And so we have to face with reality and make informed choices. Yes, we can have agency and change it by becoming editorial board members, by becoming editors and all that. So I think that's important to have non-native English speaking or speakers from diverse varieties of English to serve on the editorial board, but not always it's possible. So I would say try to, if you are concerned about that, to not let your name be known.
Okay, that's great. I have a next question. How do you identify a high impact journal? Does it have to do with publications?
That's a good question. I would say it depends on your field, but usually when you go type the title of the journal and say impact factor. And the impact factor is shown if they have the impact factor or Scopus, and there are different kinds of impact factor. So I usually type the title of the journal and look at on the information section about the journal. It provides information. And even if it doesn't have an impact factor, it has a number of rejections, percentage of rejections. There are other informations you can use. It's not just the impact factor. When I was going, and I'm sorry that I'm talking too much, when I was going up for tenure, what information I use for each journal, I tried to say, okay, if it didn't have an impact factor, who are the scholars who have published in this journal? Who are the editorial board members? Show their reputation and the publications by these scholars in this journal, and what is their acceptance rate. So you can find other information about the journal and share with your committee for promotion or for job application or whatever. I think Dr. Abdurrahman also has a question, raise her hand.
Yes, she'll be our last one.
Thank you, Dr. Eslami. My question is like continuing to the question about impact factor, because I noticed a lot of colleagues, students think like they have high expectations and they want to publish on the very high impact journals. And actually, sometimes I say like it doesn't matter to be very high impacted journal, but could you please give us more insight about how important to have how students can justify their paper on the high impact factors, or just like, as you said, like the views that have in the journal.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. Like where beginners should look. Okay.
Exactly. And Jordan is your first name, right? Jordan Donup?
Yes, Donup is my last name.
Yeah, I got these emails and it's great to see you and hear your voice here. So
Thank
I
you.
would say, yes, no, Dr. Abdurrahman, I would say if you want to really go to very high impact journals like TESOL Quarterly, it may take 3 years for you to get published, even if you have a great paper. So, and you don't have time for tenure and promotion, the clock is ticking. So I remember one of my mentors was Dr. Lark. And I said, Dr. Lark, and that was the time in TLAC, Dr. Echels may remember, they were putting lots of emphasis on impact factor, impact factor, impact factor. And I said, so if I want to go to this high impact, it may take a while. And I only have 5 years actually for tenure and promotion. She said, Zohreh, don't worry, at this stage, just publish wherever you can. Of course, be wise and smart about it, but do not necessarily go to very high impact because it's almost impossible. And not necessarily because your paper is not that good, but because you're not a well-known scholar also. So I would say, go to the journals that you think are aligned with your research and the visibility of those journals. I remember I published something which I thought was an ordinary paper in English language teaching journal in 2005. And that was just some examples and cultural issues between other nationalities and American and how we can use it for classroom teaching. That paper, which is mostly culture and teaching, has the highest number of citations. I don't know, 500, 600 citations right now. And it wasn't the most rigorous, I would say, designed paper, or the journal was not a very high impact, or in TESOL AJ, it's not a high impact journal, but those publications have gotten the highest number of citations because they are more visible. They are free to the public. So, and you can mention that you consider this. And if you are a well-known scholar or becoming well-known, let's say some of you have already established your name, and people would come to you and ask for a paper from a low impact journal because they are bringing their impact up and they want the scholars like you that are seasoned scholars to publish in their journal. So that's a service to that journal and to the community. And so you have to mention that you were invited to, and that invitation by itself. So be very smart when it comes for your review to talk to other colleagues and mention and share their ideas. I remember I went to Professor Bardawi-Harlig and say, it's time for my promotion and tenure, and what should I do? And she said, Zohreh, don't shy away. You're a female from Middle East originally, and you are humble maybe and don't want to say I'm the best, I'm the only one, but write it, say, I am the best. And it was so hard. I gave it to her and said, and she did it. And actually, it didn't backfire. I think it's going to kill me emotionally. And then those people who are going to review my file. But then I was the first, and I was the only one in Persian pragmatics. And then some people say, well, because we don't have a lot of researchers in Persian pragmatics, so if you're the only one, you are the best. But we do have some scholars in Persian pragmatics. So I would say you have to, this strategic thinking is very important for the promotion of your publications and research, Dr. Abdurrahman. And
Awesome.
I am more than willing to help if anybody is interested, at least share my experiences.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eslami. I want to thank you on behalf of Past the Publication and on behalf of a first semester PhD student. I always learn so much from our speakers. And I want to wish the rest of you a great weekend and go Ags in our game. And I will see you in our next Past the Publication.
And
Bye,
I
guys.
love these comments. Thank you. I hope you get the chat. Would I get these chats?
I believe you can see it, yes, when we download it. So we can give this to
I
you.
appreciate it because I like to see, and maybe we can use it, how much bias we have, as we can see here, because people are asking questions. And that
Yes.
shows our researchers of color, researchers of marginalized background, and these are the challenges they face. So, and then maybe we need to team up with other researchers who are from privileged background, Dr. Echels. I love Dr. Echel and how he's helpful. We have been together for years. So thank you so much, Andrea, soon to be Dr. McMurray. I just saw your degree plan. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Dr. Webb Johnson, thank you so much for being here with us.
The this recording will be able to be shared. We're working on a platform for sharing our recordings. So at the moment, you won't be able to access it, but you will be able to access it in the future. And I will definitely be able to send that info out when we're ready. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.